you have ocean basin. You still have your crust extending through all of those places. The crust is also the source of soil and vital resources that we have. So gold, is found within the crust. When we plant for agriculture, we make use of the crust. So overall, the crust is composed of a couple of elements. I believe we all know what elements are. So you have oxygen, you have silicon, there is aluminum, there is iron, there's calcium. Those are like the elements with the biggest percentages. And we have other elements that are available in trace amounts. There's sodium, there's potassium, magnesium, hydrogen, titanium, barium, phosphorus, and a few other elements that are available in very small quantities. Each of the elements makes up the most, has the higher percentage within the crust. Oxygen. And this is followed by silicon, and then aluminum and iron. All right, so I'm glad we're all following. Now, I just talked about the crust in summary, and I said the crust is where we have landforms. Now, on this slide, you can see several landforms that we have across the Earth's surface. So it's possible to have mountains. We all know what mountains look like.
Yes,
volcanoes, valley, even a plain just land that is flat without a mountain or anything is a type of landform. We have canyons. Canyons are almost like they are cave-like features that you have. We have islands, river, ocean, lake, hill, waterfall. These pictures that you see are basically examples of different landforms that exist on the crust. Now, the elements that I listed earlier are found within the Earth crust and basically found in a lot of these landforms as well. Now, these elements are organized into minerals. When we talk about them, we talk about mineral. A mineral is defined as a naturally occurring inorganic substance that has a specific chemical composition. And minerals exist together. It's minerals that combine to form rocks. Every type of rock that we have is made up of minerals. I see that they interrupt me. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. All right. So landforms are very distinct, and we've already given examples, and they are very significant because they determine a lot of other features basically that we have. The amount of water you would have, the amount of exposure to solar radiation that a particular place can have. Now, when we talk about rocks specifically, there are three main types of rocks that we have on the Earth crust. And these are igneous rocks, sedimentary rocks, and metamorphic rocks. Each of these rock types are formed by slightly different processes, but they all contain minerals, like I mentioned earlier. So if you look at this picture that we have, igneous rock, a few examples, you have granite, you have scoria, you have pumice, you have obsidian. Obsidian is what has been used in historically to make tools. So when we read of ancient man, you hear that his weapons were made from flint stone and all of that. So that's really obsidian. It's glassy in nature somewhat. Granite is a type of rock I know a lot of us are very familiar with. If you go to any construction site, you expect to find granite. So these ones that I've mentioned are examples of igneous rocks. As we move to the other types of rocks, we'll talk about their examples as well. So igneous rocks in particular are formed by the cooling and the solidification of molten magma from beneath the earth crust. Now, molten magma would come from the core. Remember, I used an orange as an example. So from the middle, you have molten magma often coming up to the surface. And so when this magma cools and solidifies, what is formed are igneous rocks. Now, igneous rocks are characterized by a crystalline structure. So when we say crystalline structure, think of a crystal. What does a crystal look like? You know, some crystals, you know, they are transparent, they are smooth, you know, so just think of those characteristics. So igneous rocks are characterized by a crystalline structure. It is non-stratified. Stratification means layers. So what we are saying is that igneous rocks are not formed by one layer on top of each other. There's a different type of rock that is formed that way, which we'll be talking about very soon. And a third characteristic is that igneous rocks do not contain fossil. They are not formed from fossil materials. So I've talked about three things now. I said they are crystalline in structure, they are non-stratified, and they do not contain fossils. They are not made from fossil materials. Now, generally, igneous rocks can be subdivided into two based on their mineral composition. So we have acid igneous rocks on one hand, and then we have basic igneous rocks on the other hand. Acid igneous rocks contain a large proportion of silica. If you remember, I mentioned silica earlier when we were talking about elements that are found in the crust. While basic igneous rocks have a high proportion of the oxides of iron, aluminum, and or magnesium. So by composition, you can have two different types of igneous rocks, the acid ones and the basic igneous rocks. Now, another difference between the two is that the acid igneous rocks are not as heavy as the basic ones, and they are lighter in color than the basic ones. So the basic igneous rocks are heavier and they are darker in color. Now, apart from classifying igneous rocks by their mineral content or chemical composition, we can also classify igneous rocks by their mode of origin. That is where they are gotten from or where they are sourced from. And by this mode of origin, we can have plutonic or volcanic rocks. Plutonic or volcanic rocks. Plutonic igneous rocks are what you find in the depths within the earth crust, while the volcanic ones are formed by molten magma that comes to the surface of the earth crust. Do we get this difference?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Plutonic, you find them within the earth crust. Volcanic occurs when the molten magma comes to the surface of the earth crust and solidifies there. So this image has a collection of igneous rocks. I mentioned a few earlier, but here you have a lot more because, like we've already said, by different categorization, you can have several. So andesite, for example, would have its own mineral composition, and then it would also have its classification based on mode of origin. So let's move on. We've talked about igneous rocks. Another type of rock, the second one we are going to be considering, are sedimentary rocks. Now, sedimentary rocks are formed from pre-existing rocks of any origin, and they are usually mixed with organic matter. Remember we said that igneous rocks are non-stratified. Well, sedimentary rocks, on the other hand, are formed as a result of these layers.
Ma. Uh,
meeting.
Okay. All right, class, can you see Prof and can you hear us well?
yes. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
ma'am. Yes.
So
Thank you.
just hold on while we get this back.
Thank you for seeing me.
No problem.
Okay. Thank you very much. You know, sometimes this new normal could be something else. I've been battling with my signal since morning. So thank you very much. So it's good for two people to be teaching a course. It makes life easy when you encounter any difficulties. So we are now on sedimentary rocks, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. So as I told you last week, all this information we are providing about this, can you please mute your, please mute your microphone. Okay. So as I said, none of this thing is new to you because you've started learning them right away from SS1 or something like that. So sedimentary rocks, as you could see, are formed from either, igneous rocks or any one. But the difference between it and igneous is that it is mixed with organic matter. And the process of formation usually starts with chemical changes and so on and so forth. And the particles are then transported. But one peculiar characteristic of this type of rocks is that they are layered. They are layered, and this makes them form into strata later. And all these type of rocks, these sedimentary rocks, they are so important economically. And as you can see, to your left-hand side, those are examples of sedimentary rocks. They are economically important. They're economically very, very important wherever you find them. And that's where most of our crude oil and all these things, that's where they are found. What do I do? Okay. Then the metamorphic rocks. Very interesting. When someone say you metamorphosize, it means you change into something else. So they are formed as a result of changes in the original igneous or sedimentary rocks. And the new rocks so formed, you normally have new structure and they may contain new minerals. Common examples are when slate, which is formed from clay parent materials, marble from limestone, you know the importance of marble, especially in the construction industry. Then the calcite from sandstones, very, very important in building construction these days. Then the granite is the grace from granite, and then graphite from coal. And lastly, sized from a shale. So these are just examples of metamorphic rocks that we have. And as I said, it is not what this rock stands for, but what we can use them for to improve the society. So it's we may have to. Is there light? Okay. Okay. So sorry, this is not touch, Abby. I think you have to move it. Okay. So the next thing I want us to take note, again, very important economically, is the difference between land denudation and